Nigel, I want to turn to the book in a moment, but first I do want to ask you about what is going on at Dunkin Brands, that we have seen this huge push in the stock. It's a bit of a tough time in the food industry in the United States. We've seen some mixed numbers on eating out. How is Dunkin doing, particularly in what's a very competitive landscape when it comes to what had traditionally been viewed as breakfast food, now is all over the different parts of the day?
So, Julie, firstly, thank you for having me on. In terms of Dunkin, just to correct you, I stepped down 2 months ago as CEO, so I'm executive chairman. We brought Dave Hoffman in. He's now CEO. We've planned this for a long time. The transition's been terrific. But to answer your question, Dave has put together a roadmap for growth. He calls it the blueprint for growth. We think it's working very well. It's been accepted extremely strongly by our franchisees. They like the way we're going. It's updating the Dunkin brand. We've got all our franchisees globally together next week. We're very excited about that. Be thousands of people there. So that's important because it keeps everyone on the same page. So, yeah, our industry is very competitive, but we spend a lot of time, as I talk about in the book, challenging what we're doing, where we're going in the future, anticipating the future. And I feel really good about everything Dunkin.
Yeah, I want to get to the book in a moment and its particular psychology, its management psychology, which is going against the grain maybe slightly. But first I want to ask you about the trade wars. How is Dunkin going to be affected, given that these are, tariffs on goods, not necessarily services? But I imagine Dunkin is going to be very affected still.
Well, to be honest, we're very focused on the US, so the actual effect on us is fairly small. Where there could be an effect is international, because we export ice cream around the world. And one of the things that we were concerned about was the Trans-Pacific Partnership going away, because we saw some real opportunities to break down barriers. But I think what's important is we need to continue to talk about trade. We actually believe to have a tariff-free world will help us, because we're very much in the ice cream business. In fact, Baskin-Robbins is the bigger brand.
It's one of the most successful in South Korea, apparently.
Well, South Korea is successful with both Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin-Robbins. And a little known fact is that Baskin-Robbins is the #1 fast food chain in the Middle East. Huh. So yeah.
Ice cream probably very valuable when it's hot.
No, absolutely. And particularly with the recent changes in Saudi, where they've opened up cinemas, etc. We're doing really well there, so we feel good.
What about the week afternoon day part? Starbucks has had to address it. I'm talking about here in the United States now. McDonald's is also sort of making changes. What does Dunkin need to do in order to address its weaker day parts?
Well, we continue to look at all day parts, as you quite rightly said earlier. And again, this is part of our philosophy. We constantly challenge. In fact, every single day, we challenge what we can do better. And in the afternoon, recently, we brought out the Dunkin Run, which are actually 5 products. It's been very well received by our customer base. We continue to come out with new beverages. And I think you're going to see a whole lineup of beverages coming out in the next few months. And that should resonate at breakfast, afternoon, and in the evening.
So when you talk about challenging how you do things, how do you do that without making people sort of constantly feel uncomfortable or insecure in their jobs, in the way they do things? Right. How do you balance that?
Well, I think something that people miss is we actually call it the challenge culture in the book.
Need to push it up just a little higher.
Challenge culture in the book. And there's 2 words there. And I think everyone focuses on the challenge. But the key word is also culture. Because I think you need to your point, surround everyone with a safe environment, a positive environment. And we talk in the book a lot about communications. We talk about how people should be encouraged to challenge. But the key to me is you have to model that behavior every day. It's something I've tried to do previously when I was CEO at Papa John's, in my 9.5 years as CEO at Dunkin Brands. And now with my English football team, we're trying to apply the same things, because this isn't just about companies. This is any organisation. It could be not-for-profit, sporting organisations.
But how do you avoid changing just for the sake of changing then, if you're constantly challenging?
Well, you're challenging, but, you know, you can challenge. Doesn't mean you have to change. And I think something that people miss is the challenge should only be perhaps 10% of the time. But to me, it is about setting up a culture that is positive, a culture that is stimulating, a culture that makes people feel they're engaged. And one of the things I think we've done really well at Dunkin is to engage people down the organisation. I run coffee chats and have done for a long time where I involve people below director level. We get lots of good ideas. They're encouraged to talk about all kinds of things from acquisitions, what's going on in the industry. And I think if you set up that kind of environment, people feel safer, they feel totally engaged and actually do a better job.
You talk about questioning everything without disrespecting anything. It goes against a little bit the sort of positive psychology trend that we're in now. But I'm curious, with all your experience, what does Papa John's need to do right now?
Right, so Papa John's, sad what's been going on. On the way here this morning, I see they're bringing out some new commercials. I think they need to get back to thinking about pizza. My understanding is the board and the franchisees have met, and I'm sure they've got a game plan. I think it has to be focused very much on delivering what is a great pizza to their customers, engaging their franchisees. There's a good group of franchisees there that many of them are my friends from the past. So I think if they focus on doing all the positive things and try and get away from the noise of who said this and who said that, I think they can have a great future.
And just very quickly, also on the topic of challenging, what about challenging Congress on some of the immigration rules that we've seen put in place? We talked earlier about tight labor market in the home building industry with the NAHB head. What about in the fast food industry?
Well, good question, Julie. Going back probably 3 years, I've been talking about the concerns about the tight labor market. In fact, I looked up some numbers this morning. Look at, it's not just the US, look at the UK and Germany, very tight labor markets. And one of the things that we've said is to everyone, including the Labour Secretary, we've sat down and say this needs to be tackled. I'm personally concerned about growth because the biggest issue by far that our franchisees talk about, and we're going to talk about it, I'm sure, next week, is they can't get enough people. Major franchisees are saying they can only get 60% of the people that they need. So something has to give somewhere. And we've suggested continually to the administration and to senators and congressmen that we need to have constructive discussion about immigration. Doesn't mean we're going to open the floodgates. It means we need to have sensible discussion. And we at Dunkin were one of the first proponents to use E-Verify. It works very well. So I think there is a place for a good discussion about it.